Welcome back, and joining me for a look at the day's markets action is Ricus Reeders from PSG Hole in One Ruinsig. Thank you so much for your time, Ricus. Very big week for central bankers. We did have the ECB last week cutting interest rates for the second time this year, and we do have the Fed, the South African Reserve Bank, and the Bank of England coming out with its own latest monetary policy moves this week. But I'm struggling to understand why the markets are struggling at this point.
Well, one thing I should mention as well is that Japan is doing its interest rate on Friday, and last time when they moved up, suddenly we had a huge reversal in the carry trade and a major effect on markets worldwide. So that's one to watch as well. But at the moment, the struggle, well, let's talk about today first of all. Firstly, there is the anticipation of what the US Fed will do with its policy decision later in the week, but China, mainland, and Japan were also closed for holidays today, so we didn't really get any reaction from the quite terrible Chinese data that came out over the weekend. So Hang Seng was down about 0.5%, but we'll see what China does 2 days from when they reopen. But coming back to the US Fed, there's a 50-50 coin toss as to whether they're going to be cut by 25 basis points or 50. And obviously also the message that they will send after the announcement, in the conference afterwards. So there's uncertainty surrounding that, and that's going to be there until such time as we know more.
Ricus, you actually mentioned the terrible Chinese data over the weekend, and it seemed that everything did not grow as investors had hoped for. Is this just another, kind of proof as to the difficulty that China is going through right now, particularly on the consumer?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that did grow was unemployment. So, in a negative sense. It's just, again, the what happens when your central government, despite trying to stimulate the economy in various ways, whether it be forgiving sort of mortgage debt and various other measures, it's piecemeal. There's no central effort to say, well, this is the way we are going to revive the Chinese economy. And the only way they can do it is by increasing their consumer spend locally. In other words, their populace is going to start buying stuff. The Americans solved that problem by helicopter money. In other words, throwing a lot of money at the US public during COVID in order to jumpstart their economy. I don't know how the Chinese government is going to do it. I mean, their system is so different from any other Western economy that heaven knows how they are going to do it. But the fact remains, until Chinese internal spending from the consumer picks up, we are going to see bad Chinese data.
Well, let's go into some of the company news that came out of the local bourse, Ricus. I guess the biggest one being African Rainbow Capital releasing its annual results today. Their intrinsic net asset value per share up by 8.5%. We did see some highlights there and maybe a few lowlights as well. But seeing that the overall growth was pleasing to investors, because I saw that stock up about 4% at some point.
Yeah, and not only today, but certainly over the last number of months, which is better than most, shall we say, investment holding companies. I think part of that positive sentiment can be directly related to Sanlam taking quite a big stake or a further stake in Time Bank. So certainly, despite some of the investments maybe not performing yet, the market likes the growth story in those specific sectors or investments that the company is growing. There's always a story about what kind of management fee that they charge for that, but in the end, if it If it grows enough, then maybe the management fee becomes less important. And the price movement in African Rainbow Capital looks very good and looks set to continue.
All right. Well, Ricus, let us get to your stock pick for today. What are you choosing?
It's a energy utility company in the United States. It's called Nextra Energy. They're based in Florida, so they've got a huge annuity income coming in from the power that they already supply to household and businesses, but they're also one of the market leaders in the United States on solar and wind. It's one of those companies that's a dividend growth aristocrat, never having dropped its dividend yield growth since 1986. And considering the field that they're in, I mean, supplying energy to households and businesses maybe sounds boring, but they can use that annuity income to fund the growth in sectors which is becoming very important. Green energy, because that's what's going to be needed to fund data centers going forward. And if you're a leader in the market in that respect, then I think the narrative surrounding it, including the fundamentals, trading on a price earnings of about 2.5, forward P of about 20, seems favorable.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time and giving us insights on what has moved investors' money today, Ricus. And this week, that was Ricus Reeders from PSG Hole in One Ruinsig.